Let's talk.
Giles Trow.
Dodging the bullet. Everybody remembers where they were the day that John F. Kennedy died. The president's assassination shocked the world. Almost as shocking are attempted assassinations. The new book is called Dodging the Bullet. It is by Trow, and I'm delighted that he joins me live on the line. Good morning to you.
Morning, Giles.
Good to have you with us. And I don't know who books you in on the day of the American elections, but they've got a great sense of humour.
Absolutely. The timing couldn't be better, could it?
Well, indeed. You know, we use the word dodging a bullet, and this is quite a fascinating look at the could have beens, because everybody remembers, if you like, where they were when JFK was shot, and obviously the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, etc. But these are the plots that sort of there, but for the grace of God.
Yeah, it is very much the grace of God. There are all kinds of things that prevent assassinations from happening, and often it's just down to sheer luck. Somebody being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or the right place at the right time. I don't know how it works. Some of it is because of the protection teams that individuals have. They do a brilliant job in a very fraught situation. They have to move incredibly quickly, lightning responses, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes, of course, they don't make it. And in some cases around the world, those very security guards have been the guys involved in the shooting.
So we just got breaking news, by the way. Trump has been elected president. Donald Trump wins the U.S. presidential election. That's just coming through now. Sky News just with those news. Now, Trump is somebody, obviously, who dodged 2 assassination attempts during this campaign.
That's right. Because of when the book was published, I literally just had time to get in the first one, which was the more dramatic of the 2. But what struck me about that attempt at Butler Farm was the similarities with the Kennedy shooting. It was in broad daylight, crowd of several thousand, Secret Service there, as always, protecting the man, and even so, the bullet nearly found its mark. And whereas there's all kinds of conspiracy theories involving Oswald, the supposed shooter of Kennedy, it looks as though the man who shot at Trump was literally the lone nut that the Americans rave about.
The lone nuts, yes, indeed. They like to think of themselves as lone wolves, but that's giving them too much credibility. It's interesting, isn't it, because any assassination or any assassination attempt, especially in a world full of social media and whatever else, and people who are quote unquote truth finders, will have conspiracy theorists going off left, right, and centre, and yet, there does seem to be, in the majority of cases, somebody who's more than slightly unhinged with a grudge.
I think social media has made the problem infinitely worse because ideas can now spread so much more quickly. If you go back to, let's take a classic British case from 1605, when a group of disaffected Catholics tried to blow up the king and his entire parliament. Who knew about that? A tiny, tiny, tiny minority. You can imagine if something like that happened today, it would be all over the world within seconds. All kinds of people jumping on bandwagons, making life that much more difficult for the security forces whose job it is to keep the lid on things.
What was your starting point then? What was the flash? And that's not a gunpowder flash, but what was your flash?
I like it.
Thank you.
The flash.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the flash was that attempted assassinations are just as dramatic as actual assassinations. They cause what they're designed to cause: mayhem, chaos, confusion, fear, panic. You've got all that, and you've also got the what ifs. You've also got the narrow misses. You've also got the element of why didn't this assassination work? So in a way, the story of failed assassinations is more complex than those that succeeded.
I'm glad you bring in Guy Fawkes, because I mean people seem to think that that's some sort of celebration, etc. But it is an assassination plot. People tend to forget that in all the look at that pretty Roman candle, etc. I mean, going through history must be sort of very entertaining, because we kind of forget, don't we? We look back at history with rose-tinted binoculars sometimes, and for example, the role of Queen Victoria. Everybody sort of stands on their soapbox in their Union Jack underpants singing, Rule Britannia. But there was division in Scotland. If the wonderful film Mrs. Brown, of course, deals with the fact that the Queen Victoria was the subject of several missed assassination attempts.
That's right. There were several attempts on Victoria's life. And of course, she, like so many leaders before and since, would insist on appearing in public, completely exposed. She often travelled in open-top carriages. She went walkabout, as we say today, through the crowds, waiting for people to cheer and so on. They expected to see their queen. And it was an absolute gift for anybody with a pistol who wanted to take her out. Again, you've got to look at the end result. What would have happened if somebody had killed Victoria? Well, nothing in terms of the actual government, because the Queen had very few constitutional powers indeed. Britain would just have ticked on. They'd have been appalled and horrified. But that would have been all. But
if you look at the value, because let's look at what I suppose we now have to refer to as the continent. During the sort of the late 18th century, the late 19th century, and into the 20th century, there is. Because of monarchs and heads of state wanting to get out and meet the people in open-top carriages, and obviously we have what happens in Sarajevo triggering the First World War. But there is, if you like, an anarchist movement, a political movement that believes that throwing bombs into open-top carriages is going to have. It might not change the constitution, but it will have a huge effect in a sort of PR term.
That's true. I mean, anarchists in particular, of course, do not have a positive agenda. They have nothing to put in place of an existing system. They are simply there to cause as much difficulty as possible. And I must confess, after X number of years of being an historian, I have no idea what makes them tick. I don't see how you can run a society with no shape, no structure, no justice, no fairness. It really doesn't make sense. And you come back to the possibility that it was killing for the sake of it, as in the medieval cult of the Hashashin, which the word assassins come. As far as I understand it, their intent was simply to destroy. Beyond that, there was nothing.
But when you get to the old man in the mountains, etc., which was their leader, I mean, they become a right rule pain in the proverbials for anybody who sort of crosses their path or is within striking range of them, and it becomes this sort of gun, or not gun for hire, but at least knife stroke dart for hire, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the old man in the mountains is a fascinating character because the very term transcends the centuries, doesn't it? You think he's still out there somewhere plotting and planning, Possibly they were involved in the destruction of the Children's Crusade in 1212, when thousands of French and German kids marched to Jerusalem. They didn't get very far because they were stopped by the Muslims, led by the old man of the mountains. Obviously, he wasn't going to let that happen. He can't have a Christian movement sweeping across the Middle East, so he got involved in that. But it is almost mystic. The fact that these men followed him because they were promised paradise, and that was enough for them.
What is very interesting is if people think that is no longer sort of relevant, then you only have to go and parents ask your kids if any of you has played the first Assassin's Creed. That's Creed. That's all about the old man in the mountains and the Knights Templar. It's fascinating stuff indeed. Looking at some of the what ifs. There are a couple that stand out. I mean, we've got what if Reagan, but that was if you like a lone nutter with a gun. But de Gaulle, I mean, if you think, because there's going to be a remake of Day of the Jackal, of course, famously, it shouldn't be touched, in my opinion, played by Edward Fox. But exactly. But if you think about the situation where France was at that time, and the Algerian War, the horrors of that, and the situation that could have resulted from that, had not that sort of plot been foiled.
Yes, exactly right. Like you, I'm not looking forward much to the remake of The Day of the Jackal. The film was so superb. And the film worked because you have an assassin who is completely unknown. He has no face, he has no name, he has no history. And that is the most difficult kind of assassin to take down. There were an awful lot of people who wanted to go dead. And that's something else to bear in mind, of course, with the whole assassination thing. People make enemies. Castro made enemies. De Gaulle made enemies. Julius Caesar made enemies. These are, by and large, unlovely people, and some of them push people too far. Hence the attempt to kill them.
Yes, Castro. Now, as the saying goes, this time it's personal because, Cuba, the Batista regime gets overthrown in Havana. A lot of people are very upset about this, not least sort of Murder Inc., the mafia families who know a few things about bumping people off. And you would think after the Bay of Pigs fiasco, that the CIA get a real sort of kicking in the proverbials, and they want this man dead. But what follows throughout is almost Python-esque in its... Well, it is, isn't it? Exploding cigars, for goodness sake. There are so many... You would think that an organisation is supposed to be cold-blooded. It's got CIA who are just about, who are already doing, things in Vietnam and are going to do these things in South America. You've got the mafia who've lost most of their income from Havana and the casinos. You would think that, getting rid of Fidel would be just a matter of, going down to the nearest, Tony Soprano lookalike and having a quick word.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There are a number of factors. One is chance, sheer luck. It's the completely randomness of it all. As I said earlier, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, right place at the right time. But Castro, like Hitler, they both had that ability to think on their feet, to change plans, to confuse their enemies. Castro had at least 20 houses in Cuba. Now, where was he going to be on any given day? He didn't tell anybody in advance. He didn't broadcast it. If you go back to JFK, everybody and his wife knew not only that JFK was going to Dallas when he did, but exactly the route the motorcade was going to take. What a stupid thing to do, because it's the Western way, it's the democratic way. It's not Castro's way, nor was it Hitler's.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast about the assassination of Martin Luther King, and not only did they have the place where he was staying in Memphis, but they actually TV reports showed the actual room number that he was going to be, and the balcony itself, which would be unthinkable about, wouldn't it, in today's sort of secure environments?
Yeah, it certainly would, and you've got the old problem here of the media. Said he, talking to a media guy. But you see the problem. How much information should be given out? How much information do we need to know? How much information are we giving to the wrong kind of people? All these things have to be weighed up. And I'm always astonished in the States that it took the deaths of 3 presidents before they actually set up a security service in the first place, which is frankly unbelievable. I always think back to Abraham Lincoln. He had 2 bodyguards. One was off duty on the day. The other one was an ordinary policeman who was standing on guard outside the box in Ford's Theatre, and he wanders off for a break, and he doesn't come back. And in the meantime, Lincoln is dead. Today, unbelievable. But then, standard practice.
When it comes to assassination attempts, it's Reagan sort of. Not only does Reagan sort of spring to mind as well because of those images that we have of the gunman, but So people say what you like about Reagan, like him or loathe him because of his stance on law and order, etc. But he was great with one-liners. Honey, I forgot to duck was his words.
Yes, it's absolutely perfect. You really, the sort of coolness of these guys under fire is quite phenomenal. I mean, even Trump, fight. To be able to come back with that a second after his ear was partially blown off by a bullet is really something else. They do have an inner steel that most of us probably don't possess. You have to admire them for that.
And is it not? I mean, I know you've probably seen that thing on YouTube, but Reagan's giving a speech in Germany, I think, and a balloon goes off, pops in the crowd, and without, and it goes poof, like that, and without a second, he misses a beat, and then he goes, "Missed me." I mean, that's just.
Well, that's a classic example. Yeah, right.
So when it comes to sort of writing something like that, I mean, are we sort of a little bit more comforted if we think these are quote unquote, lone fruitcakes rather than shadowy, sinister organizations?
Yes, we are. We would rather that he is a single individual who is disturbed, who is paranoid, who is mentally ill, whatever. We can't do much about those people because they're sometimes quite difficult to detect and they're often very cunning. But that is preferable to an organization, an institution, for example, the FBI, for example, the CIA, who may be behind such assassinations and or attempts, because those organizations are not only better qualified to get the job done, but they are part of the very fabric of society. They are supposed to be there. They are supposed to protect us. And if they're not doing that, God help us all.
So what are you hoping that people will and what did you learn? I mean, what you came to this book, what sort of stuck out? I mean, who was, do you think, maybe the luckiest, who came, closest to sort of bursting through the veil into the life thereafter, and who was the most inept of the organizations who were trying to bump off an elected or a much loved or much hated despot?
Well, the most inept, as you said a minute ago, has got to be the CIA with attempts on Castro, simply because he got away with, I think the usual figure is 636 attempts. They weren't all from the CIA, but some of them were. And I can't understand how an institution that is trained, they have a manual, they have an assassination manual, which wasn't known about until the 1970s, I think. But it exists, it's out there, you can get it online, and it explains how hits should be carried out. Now, how can that organization fail? I don't know. I don't have a definite answer to it. In terms of luck, it's got to be dear old Gavrilo Princip, who, if you've never heard of him, listeners, was the man who caused the First World War. He was a 19-year-old nutcase, part of a criminal organization, terrorist organization in the Balkans. And this was Sarajevo in the June of 1914. Franz Ferdinand, the Archduke, was driving past, open-top car again. And Gavrilo Princip pulls out his pistol, shoots him and his wife, kills them both. As far as Princip knew, he'd already been blown up several streets away. Yes, there'd been a bomb, but it hadn't affected Franz Ferdinand. But that random bullet did, and that was sheer luck. Good luck for Princip, bad luck for the literally millions who died in the First World War.
Indeed, and also just another one, of course, Stauffenberg and the whole Valkyrie plot. That's another one of the great sort of what ifs, isn't it?
It is. It's a matter of inches here. Stauffenberg put a briefcase, a bomb, in the Wolfslair, Hitler's headquarters in the east. He put it under a table, and somebody else moved it literally inches to the other side of the table leg, and therefore, although the bomb went off and Hitler was slightly damaged, he wasn't killed.
Yeah, because it's a heavy oak table leg, and that deflects the blast away.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, random chance. What can you do?
Well, exactly. If people want to find you online, what's the best place to, in the nicest possible way, so they can send you greetings rather than a virtual brick through the window?
Don't shoot the messenger.
Indeed. But yeah, where can they find you?
Perhaps if you contact me via my publisher, in the case of this book, Pen and Sword. It is www.penandswordbooks.com.
The book is called Dodging the Bullet, Failed Assassinations Through History. You'll be able to order it, by the way, via our own virtual bookstore. It's by MJ Trow, who is here today. Can I just say, what an absolute pleasure. And whoever booked you in on this particular day has a wonderful sense of humour, but it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you this morning.
Thank you, Giles, and likewise, right back at you.